This month, March 2023, we bring XSM Alpine, a short film featuring XSM using specialized rock climbing gear to propel down the side of a building and paint his three-letter. This approach to bombing is one not often taken. However, in recent years, it's become the method of choice for XSM. Using rock climbing gear originally designed for alpine climbing, where the aim is to reach the summit of a mountain, XSM is able to scale buildings and paint spots that would otherwise be physically impossible. Alpine explores the process of adapting rock climbing gear from the mountainsides to the urban cityscape of downtown New York. This short film also includes XSM speaking about how he learned to do this, where the idea originally came from, the process, fears, dangers, and more. The full video is now available exclusively via our Patreon. Members also gain access to our Patreon episode and video library, featuring interviews from Ichabod Y Me, Curve TGE, Dessa MTA, Bat and Ola, Lex PMS, Cash 4, written interviews from Deceived Smart Crew, Cheek, and You Won't, and videos like All We Got Is Us 2, Jedi 5's You Win Some, You Lose Everything, Savvy OTR, and more. Blessings and thank you to everybody who supports the show in any way. Enjoy the episode. Peace.
Hey, this is Claw Money, and you're listening to Angel and Z, sponsored by Art Primo. What is Art Primo, you ask? How dare you? Art Primo is a graffiti shop that was started by writers for writers in Seattle in 2001, and they have stayed true to their roots for over 20 years, offering everything from caps to inks to paint to refillable mops. They got nibs, they got jibs, they got caps, solids, zines, books, and more. And their how-to videos and YouTube channel are legendary. Art Primo strives to keep their prices low and quality high, hand pouring all of their mops and inks in their Seattle warehouse, shipping orders on the same day, and their site is a source of information for all types of writing tools. Tools for what? Tools for the revolution.
Yo, thank you so much for coming on the show, bro. Super
Absolutely.
hyped. Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about starting it. Like, you don't really have any interviews out there, right?
No, I'm not someone that's ever really jumped into interviews before. So
Yeah.
I guess the first
So
one.
it was kind of hard for me to do, like, a lot of homework on you. I was on your Instagram, and like, I know you're about graph, you're about your art, and you're always like painting and making work just kind of happen. But other than that, it was kind of hard to know where you're from, like your background, your upbringing, or like anything like that. So yeah, like where are you originally from, and like how did you start writing graph and getting into it?
I'm from Oakland, California, and grew up in the Bay Area. Half my family's from Oakland, half my family's from San Francisco. So I'm a Bay kid, born and raised. All I ever remember of like my first fucking time I saw graffiti was freight trains in Oakland. My dad worked for the railroad, and he would like always talk about freights and people painting trains, and he thought it was cool when people did like good shit on it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a railroad engineer, he was like into that, and was like, that's something as a kid I'd like had a love for trains from my dad's occupation, obviously. And then I just remember seeing graffiti in motion and was like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. And then as I got more into like just what I saw around the Bay Area happening as a kid, that was just what like got into my blood, I guess.
So did you start with freights?
I started painting like kind of everything at the same time, to be honest. I started as a bus hopper in Oakland, which is not the easiest being a white kid in East Oakland bus hopping, unless you're like getting hit in the head with your own skateboard.
Yeah.
But I was doing that shit, and I got into painting, bombing, freights, everything at the same time.
What year was this around?
I started tagging when I was 14. And then by the time I was 15, I was like painting freights and doing pieces, and like had no idea what I was doing, but at least was trying to pretend like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to have a lot of older friends I met at a young age that all looked out for me. So I had more guidance than most kids my age. I had a lot of like great peers in Oakland that were like local legends. Ezo, Beats, two guys are like huge influences on me, like real like hometown hero, East Bay, like 90s shit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had a lot of good mentors at a young age.
How was Oakland during that time period? Because I was there not that long ago. I would say like 3-4 months ago. It was pretty gnarly, to be honest with you. I don't really know what area I was in, but there was just like a lot of like, like street homelessness, a lot of like tent city shit going down, a lot of abandoned stuff, a lot of graph on the abandoned stuff. And tent cities, like I've never really seen them before. Like people were building straight up structures because they just had mad time because they weren't getting booted
Yeah,
and
man,
shit.
it's like full Mad Max villages out there built off like industrial scrap yards, like full compounds. Oakland's gnarly, man. Oakland's a fucking rough city.
It was like that when you were coming up too.
Yeah. It changed a little bit. I've seen like, kind of like go towards like whatever you want to call like hipster trending build out. But like Oakland is a rough city. Oakland is a city with like such a beautiful soul and like such a great community. But it's certain parts of it are rough as fuck. And it's like, it's a like no pity committee type situation in a lot of it, just like a lot of cities, just like New York, just like LA, I'm sure in pockets. Like, yeah, but Oakland is like growing up doing graffiti in Oakland. It was, it made you aware, like one of my earliest painting partners, who's still one of my best friends to this day, is Baker. Me and him met when we were like 17, 18, something like that, at a barbecue in East Oakland. There was like this cool cafe shit where you could paint the backyard and they'd have shows, and like we were like the two young kids showing up to paint. And it's like we always like kind of joke about exploring the East Bay and those parts at that time, like mid 90s, late 90s, like you had to have your wits about you. So I felt like it was a good training ground no matter what, because you're not off painting nowhere where it doesn't matter. Like you got to watch your ass while you're painting.
Yeah. Was it like more, I know in LA a lot of the times you got to worry about gangs rather than cops. You're still worrying about cops, but you're really worrying about gangs and like kind of knowing the area that you're in. Was it like that in Oakland as well?
I wouldn't really say the gang thing as much as just, similar mentality of just being in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to watch, like you would know how to navigate to get in and out of spots. Like you don't want to walk the wrong dead end road trying to get into a spot to paint and run into people that are just going to, fucking check you immediately, like for being there for starters. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was like gang shit. Like LA is so much that, like you have to be aware of that while you're painting. But yeah, Oakland is just being aware of your surroundings, knowing where you're at.
Yeah. When did you leave Oakland?
I stayed in Oakland until I was 18, and I moved to San Francisco.
Okay.
And I lived in San Francisco most of my life. I lived in LA for 1 year.
Yeah. SF is another one. SF is another place that I went to that was like pretty gnarly,
What are your thoughts on SF?
It's, in terms of graffiti, obviously like the history that came from there and the scene is just historical. I think it is a place that influenced a lot of graffiti worldwide and just really made its mark. And a lot of the people who were there during that time period of like, like KR and Twist and all of that shit going down, ended up doing their thing also outside of graffiti, doing their thing in art as well. And just really like pushing the boundaries of what's possible for people who are into graph or people who just like are into the shit that we're into. So I have like a lot of respect for that. However, when I went, I was like, holy shit. Because I went for skating. And I was like, yo, we're going to bomb hills. This is going to be awesome. And then I started seeing like the gnarliness of it. And then I was like, this is pretty crazy because like, I thought parts of New York were gnarly. But there's like, it seems like there's just an abundance of like mental health issues and shit like that. And also, I don't know, like I'm just like not used to seeing tents wherever they want to be. Like in New York, it'll be more like in these locations or in this hidden or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not like full street villages, like on random corners.
Yeah, SF, it'll be like full street village. So I was really like, I saw a photo of some graph you painted, and I think it was from 2006 on your Instagram. And I was thinking, how was it painting in 2006 in San Francisco? What was the scene like? And how would you say it's any different from like what it is now?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't painted San Francisco streets like I used to for a while now, like past couple of years. I'm like barely in San Francisco. I see SF as crushed right now, and I see it literally kind of being the parallel of what it was at that time. Mm-hmm. Like there definitely was a period where it was like cleaned up a bit. But yeah, that era, 2006, like shit was just fucking crushed. And like there's so much development going on, and like the crazy cycle of SF of like gentrification and like knocking down old buildings and building these crazy loft fucking obscurities, and like there's all these pits, construction, walls, things being knocked down. So it was like a playground, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It was like very easy to find a spot to paint where you didn't even have to have something in mind. You know, you could just like meet up with your boy and roll and then be like, oh, we're going to do blocks right here, or there's that shit, or, you know, it was just fun. It was just a playground.
When you were focused on street graffiti and just really bombing heavy, how different do you think that era was to what it is now? Meaning, like, I was talking to this guy and he was talking about how in his time period, and he was like a skateboard filmer, they didn't have iPhones, they had pagers, and it would make for like a more organic lifestyle. Like, you wake up, you go see what's actually happening, and to see if people are around, you got to actually go to those spots and shit like
experience
that.
It firsthand.
Experience it firsthand. Like, now you don't really have to do that, and that changes a lot of shit. Like, especially with something like something like graph or something like skating that's so, like, in my opinion, supposed to be like, you're supposed to be there. How do you think that's changed shit?
I mean, it's just, we live in like an instant gratification like life, you know, and like what you said, like the parallel of skating, I think about where you waited, you know, anxiously for that 411 tape to come, or obviously Thrasher or something, and that was like what you got to see, you know, and like same as like Scribble magazine or any of this other shit, like you didn't get to see like the brand new thing that was painted just yesterday. You had to wait, and maybe you saw it, or maybe someone traded flicks with you, or you had a plug, and that was like the inside community, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel grateful that I got to like be a part of that before the internet whole thing changed it. But also, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I fucking think it's great to see all these artists' work I love from Brazil or wherever, you know. It's like we all want that, what's the word for it? You know, like that stimulus and inspiration. Yeah. So, yeah, like I'm not going to lie and say I don't enjoy the like visual, you know, overload of getting to see so much art and all that. But at the same time, it totally dissolves that, like, being a part of the community and like having to do the work, like you said, and actually like see it firsthand.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I remember how exciting it was to like wake up, you know, like when I'm like 18, 19, people will be like, dude, you see the new spot that this guy painted, or fucking blah, blah, did this, and be like, I gotta go. You know, it's not like someone had a photo to send you. Yeah. Someone just called you and was like, it's fucking on Market and 7th. And you're like, dude, I can't wait to go see it. You know, you'd have that energy and excitement. Yeah, so you definitely miss, you know, you trade a little bit of that, obviously, or all of that with.
Yeah, and I kind of like, I used to be so excited seeing Graph, but now I see it usually on my phone before I even get to see it in person. Yeah, it's like I'm getting the whole movie told to me, but I don't get before I even seen it.
Yeah, the trailer shows all the highlights before you.
Yeah, but honestly, like now, if I see like a big thing in Graph that I haven't seen on the internet, but I see it in person first, it still hypes me up. Yeah. But I got to see it in person first. Like if I see it online already, I already know it's there, and then it's like I don't know. But as an artist and someone who's making paintings and making that type of work, do you actually think that the like Instagram specifically, but social media and the internet has benefited artists? Because on the one hand, like you do have like a type of control because you get to really show your portfolio. It's open and mad, people can see it, and you control when you post and when you don't and all that. But at the same time, like I feel like you're also bound by the algorithm and what like not all your followers are gonna see that shit. Yeah. And not only that, but like for example, like as someone who's making paintings, they might have more of an impact in person. Some paintings and some things are supposed to be seen in person. And I wanted to hear your opinion on that. Like there's new mediums. I see you work with like a whole bunch of different types of mediums. Acrylic paint, like paint markers, all like joining it into one. But now, and there's classical mediums like oil, but now there's mediums that are literally digital artwork. What do you think about all that?
I mean, I work on a computer. I do some digital stuff as well. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like the experience of looking at art in person, you know, same subject or something that's hand done. And you can look at the best photo of it on the internet, of course, but it's not like standing in front of a painting, you know? Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, I'm still driven really like passionately by that, you know, by anything hand done, by getting to paint by hand, seeing artists work in person I love. Like, you know, landed here a couple of days ago and checked out a few galleries, and you know, it was great to land in a city I love and see fucking cool art right away in person, you know, and experience that. And it's not something you can replicate by looking on the internet, you know? So again, it's like part of seeking it out and being in that like place, you know?
Yeah. So what's up with like the cheeseburgers on everything?
To be honest, it was I was like always had a really hard time finishing paintings,
Okay.
like art paintings, because I have like fucking crazy ADHD and can't concentrate on shit. And I was like, I'm like the master of unfinished paintings for years, and I shared studios with all my great friends and like inspirations and everyone coming through, and then I just was like, there was like a cruise show in LA, and I didn't have an idea for a painting the night before, and I thought of some stupid idea of like the Hamburglar knocked out Ronald McDonald, but the Hamburglar had our like crew ring on, like the known gallery ring, so he left a symbol in his forehead, which is actually based off a true story that just happened. And I was like, all right, the Hamburglar gets Ronald McDonald and like knocked him out and busted his teeth, and he's like running away, and there's burger chicks, and it was just a dumb idea, and I had so much fun painting it. I was like, oh, I just want to paint stuff like this that's silly, and I actually like am laughing while I'm painting it and having fun, and like want to just think of something that's totally, I don't know, just amusing to me versus trying to like make a painting that looks cool or try to you know. And I guess I was like in that place before, you know. I have like all these older brothers that are so talented and doing all this crazy shit, and I'm like, I want to do some art, you know, but I'm like, I don't really have like my lane, and I'm not like, I didn't know like where I fit. And then I'm like, all right, now I'm doing something that is just fun, and I just kept painting those.
Yeah. Honestly, the more I delved into your shit, the more I felt it. Like I was getting more and more hyped. It's like when you see it throw and you see it throw and you see it throw, and before you know it, you're like, damn, I really fuck with this throw.
Yeah.
And it's like growing on you more and more. Yeah. And I kind of felt like the kind of like the fact that you're like making it central around a cheeseburger, it's almost like a tag, because I like know who did it right away, because that's there. And I feel you on the like doing something that's more true to you and is more fun, because I feel like a lot of the times like making art can sometimes even be stressful, because you're thinking of like everybody else and how it should look. But if you look at some of like the greatest artists ever, like some of their shit is just true to them, and that's what, in my opinion, makes it good art, because like that's their shit.
Yeah,
it's just them in like another form. And I kind of feel that with yours. When was the first one that you did that was like centered around the cheeseburger?
I want to say like 2000, either 2008 or 2009.
What mediums do you work with?
It was the first ones I did were, I've done screen printing a long time. We had a bunch of like screen printing shops. We did mostly like a bunch of like big poster, like paper prints. So a lot of the first ones were all like screen print and then painted into, or like all screen print bases and then like hand outline. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a couple of years before I just started doing acrylics. But yeah, pretty much mix of like acrylic, spray paint, oil, stick, and some screen prints.
Do you feel like your roots within graffiti kind of like funnel into your art in one way or the other? Maybe whether even it be just like the way that you think, or like the subjects that you're painting on.
I feel like it does a little bit more now, to be honest, but didn't. And it was like same theory of like just reminding yourself to have fun with it versus like worrying about all this shit. It's like going to paint a piece or do a spot and you're worried about how great it's, whatever, all these things, versus just be like, man, I'm going to have fun and paint and do like, I really like doing this. So like, that's why I'm doing it, and like enjoy that moment and then see how it comes out and have fun. And it's like, I feel like with my art, same shit. It took a while to like get there where you're like, dude, this is all just supposed to be fun. Like, this is like just making this shit. It's like arts and crafts,
Yeah. So you have a lot of unfinished paintings.
I did. I'm getting better at finishing them now, but I had a lot of unfinished paintings.
So what, are you working on like several at a time, or?
Now I try to like work on one and finish one, or have like one big one going and do a bunch of small ones, like when my attention span runs out on the big one. But try to focus on getting stuff done more now than leaving shit unfinished. Yeah.
So what do you think? What would you say inspires you to make these paintings? And when did you start going from? Have you always been painting? Were you on some mainly graph shit at first, and then started doing more like art and stuff like that, or were you just always doing both at the same time?
I always did a little bit of both at the same time, but art was always like way the backseat. You know, graffiti was always first. Graffiti's always been like what drives me. And as far as inspiration, you know, I think I said it before. I'm like, my whole life, I feel I've been so lucky to have such great mentors and people around me for inspiration, because it just doesn't really ever end. You know, like it's like I'm always like waking up and seeing what my, you know, community's doing around the world and people what I love, and you know, photos they send me, stuff I see online, whatever. And it's just like the inspiration just in like my circle of people I'm with is so strong. You know, it's like there was like a recent inspiration a couple months ago. I was in Detroit for Revoke had a big opening at the Mocha. It was fucking crazy. Like the energy that just comes from that, and like all of our crew, you know, so much of our crew being there and friends, and like, you know, you certain things like that inspire, even it's like you're already there and on that wavelength and feeling all that, and then it's like those type of like catalyst events happen, or like, you know, you're like, oh dude, now I'm like really fucking, you know, like I'm like a little kid all over again. I want to go make some shit, or like talking to your boy on the phone and he's getting ready for a huge show in Europe, and he's, you know, showing you teasers and new shit, and you're just like, oh fuck, I want to go make some shit, you know. It's like I feel like that like little kid energy of it is like what I'm trying to live in as much as possible. And it's like, you know, just want to make cool shit and be inspired by your cool friends.
Yeah, how did you get down with like the crews that you're in? They're just like very well-known crews, legendary crews, known worldwide, and there's a lot of graph crews, but not a lot of graph crews that really breach out past the scope of pure just only graph. They're reaching all different types of levels, and like showing like I said before, like what's possible on like a further scale. And that shit really hypes me up, honestly, because I feel like it just shows, like, I don't know, it shows everybody what's possible, and that like you're writing graph, but you could do A, B, and C too, and you can really do whatever you want, type of thing. And it sounds like cliche, but it's the truth. Like, and it's crazy to me that like you and your crewmates and your friend group, like everyone's doing it. You know what I mean? So yeah, how did you meet like the people in MSK or the people in D30 and getting down, and then just like how did that relationship transpire?
Yeah, be honest, like MSK, AWR is like life inspiration to me, as far as like, you know, from a kid growing up in Oakland, my favorite graffiti was like Dream TDK, you know, huge inspiration by a lot of those guys. Loved like New York writers, Cess, Yes To, you know, Wayne, all these guys looking at their stuff. And then like the crew that whatever it was, whatever they did in my mind was always above and beyond what anyone was doing, was MSK, AWR since I was a kid. And obviously I grew up Bay Area. I spent a lot of time in LA. So I saw a lot of this shit in person, you know. It's like I remember being a teenager, like 16 in SF, like skating up to some abandoned pit that like Zest, Revoke, Air, all these guys had just crushed, and just standing there and being like, how the fuck did these guys do this? You know, like literally just being like, this isn't legal for sure, but like these dudes are just making everyone else look silly because people are like, have a throw up this big, and the throw up looks scared. You know, like the throw up looks shy and nervous in the corner. These dudes painting the biggest spot in the light and fucking flexing super hard, you know, like you're just like, nothing's scared about that. That shit is confidence and fucking style. And, you know, like if anything, it's just, you know, you don't even know what to think of it. As a kid, I was like looking at that kind of stuff. Or like the first time I saw a GK straight letter was in San Jose on this bridge. He had done a GK and an AWR, you know, and same thing. Everyone else went like part way out on the bridge. And of course, GK, he's right dead smack in the middle, biggest, most legible GK AWR. And I'm like, that's that shit, you know? And I'm like, that's on another level. So like looking up to those guys, they always were inspiration to me. And then the first person I met from the crew was Grime. I got tattooed by him when I was like 18. I met Bless around the same time. Me and Bless had a really good friend who was a, you know, OGSF tagger also by the name of SA1. He introduced me and Bless. We became close right away. And really quickly I met everyone else, and everyone was so inviting. And, you know, I was like this little punk ass kid, and they're like, come to LA and paint, fucking hang out and do all this shit. And, You know, it was like a dream to meet people you've looked up to, you know, and all of a sudden you're just like getting the chance to paint alongside them and be inspired by them, and, you know, just kept it moving from there.
Yeah, that is crazy because the same thought that you had about like this is the crew that's always, you know, coming the biggest, coming the strongest with the most style and everything. People had that around the world, including myself. Like when I was I don't know, 15, 14, 13 years old, and I'm like from the East Coast, but I would see all this shit online too, or even in New York, there's like MSK stuff. And it would like when there is MSK stuff, there was this one off on like the highway that shit said MS Kings in chrome, and I used to love driving by it, and it was one of the few pieces of graffiti that I noticed before I knew what graph was because of how legible it was. And I would just see MS Kings, and I remember as super young being like, what the fuck is that? Like, and because it doesn't, at that time to me, it didn't look like graph. Like graph looks like some blob throw up that I can't really read, but this is like as legible as day and looks like the lines are perfect. I started looking into it, and the more that I learned, the more I was like, yo, like this is clearly like the step ahead. You know what I mean? So a lot of people I feel like felt how you felt, like inspired by this, and then for you to, you know, meet them and, you know, see it more in person and be able to witness like all the other stuff that transcends graffiti is pretty sick. Like, and you kind of follow in like the same vein because like you're also, you know, doing your very big graph, and then you're also painting. You're also like, and it's probably just super natural. You know what I mean? It's just like organic. I saw that you did those like family freights, where you did like one letter was a whole car.
Yeah, the holy rollers, yeah.
Yeah, what's up? What was up with those? How long ago was those? And like, are those still running? Because I know they're split.
They are. They're all like spread out, like orphans on their own around the country. But like that's actually 20 years ago this year. I did it in 2003, and so it's definitely a funny story of what led up to that, which was just literally the day before. And back to the conversation of photos and pre-internet and all this shit. I went to meet all these older SF writers that were all friends of mine, guys I looked up to, in 2003 at this bar, and they had all these photos with them printed out. You know, they got like the Walgreens same day photos, and they had each done one whole car the night before at the same yard, and there were like 5 of them, and they're there bragging, and we were playing pool, drinking, and they were like old guys. They're always busting my balls, so I was like, man, you guys aren't shit. I'll do fucking 5 by myself, and just started arguing with them, talking shit, and then it turned into a conversation, and then I was like, fuck that, I'm going to do it tomorrow. So the next day I pushed a cart out with all the bucket paint and carried it out there, and I was out there when the sun was going down and like made a bet basically against all these guys that I would do it. Bager and Biter and like King 157 showed up. Bager and Biter did like a whole car together. That was really cool. And then I just fucking was out there painting 5 houses, sweating my fucking balls off till the sun came up.
How long did that shit take?
It did one night, but I was out there when the sun was up for like about an hour.
Yeah, it probably took mad long.
I had like a timer set for each one because I was like, all right, I have like this much window. So I was like, it was like frantic. I was like painting as fast as I could. So it was really just trying to cover as much as I could. I had a photo of me the next morning afterward because I was sweating so much. I had like my shirt off and everything while I was doing it. And it looked like a giant bird had like shit all over me. Like I had white paint like all over me because it was just flying off the train. So like I was literally like covered head to toe in white paint the next day.
How often do you get those sent to you?
That's probably, to be honest, like the coolest thing I get sent is like every once in a while you get this amazing photo of like the T with like a snow-capped mountain behind it, or like the E and one of the E's in Mexico or something, you know, and they're still out there like rolling around. So it was cool.
What do you think about the idea of like someone being a full-time bomber but long term, because that's some shit that it's hard to do long term because it comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of other stuff that kind of like is outside of graph, and someone's told me before that you can't do that shit long term, unless you're gonna have a shitty life. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think there's definitely some truth to that, but I think like most things, it's about the balance of trying to, you know, live a good life, grow as a person, but still hold on to this like you know, still hold on to graffiti lifestyle and like bombing, you know. Like I always make the stupid joke that I'm like, like we're all holding on to this like Bart Simpson youth with a death grip, you know. Like all I ever cared about was like skateboarding and graffiti and hanging out with my friends, which is pretty much the three things I love the most still to this day. And that's cool. There ain't nothing wrong with that. You got to grow a little bit as a person, but I'd like to think that I'll be painting, you know, illegally for my life, but
yeah,
it's there is, when you get so far into it, it's like when graffiti consumes your life. Like when you're all the way out there painting illegally and like that's all that you care about is your spots and getting shit in that zone, like everything else just takes a back seat because it's louder than everything else, you know.
Does graph still hold that same like drive and passion for you that it had when you were like really bombing heavy?
It's definitely like dwindled and come back a few times. For me right now and recently, I've been having the most fun I've been having painting in a long time. So I'd say I'm like been more active just because I have like that young energy or that young inspiration again, where I'm just like just really want to paint all the time. And there's times in my life where I just like haven't painted that much because the inspiration just hasn't been there, you know, or just dealing with other life shit or career and whatever.
What was it like painting in Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit's a blast.
Yeah.
When Revoke first moved there, it was nuts. It was like RoboCop the movie, you know, like rolling around there. You could just do like whatever you wanted. And like all friends from around the world were going there in waves. You know, like he had just landed and planted the flag, and it was crazy. Next one out there, and they just fucking took over the city like the first couple weeks. You know, like all kinds of heavy hitters were coming to town, and it was just like, it was a wave, you know.
What year was this around when you were painting there?
I want to say he moved there 2010, something like that. Okay. I feel like that was the first trip I went out there and stayed like a good minute just to paint and have fun, and it was just fucking wild because it was a playground.
Because wasn't there like a huge buff that happened when there was like crazy crackdown? The mayor got like obsessed with it and started raiding people's houses and doing shit like that.
Yeah, I'm not like super into all what's happening with that, but I do know that there was like big buff, and they like the city got serious on graffiti and like cracked down on that shit. And it's like I was there for that show, like I was just saying. It's different to see. It's crazy what's happened in what I've seen in the 10, 12 years I've been going there, especially just the past few years. But yeah, it's like totally different.
What was it like now?
I mean, there's a lot of money and investment, and you know, it's a different place. You know, a lot of nice restaurants, galleries, all that shit, which is great. It was great. The city's like being rebuilt, but it's like before it was literally just a playground for delinquents. Like you just do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, it was like really industrial, right?
Super industrial, yeah.
All the photos, I've never been, but all the photos I see from the graph during that time period is like the best graph. Pretty much like everyone went and did the best shit inside the abandoned buildings and outside in the streets everywhere. It's really crazy how something that's like that can flip completely, like night and day.
Yeah, the abandoned, I mean, there's just so much abandoned, you said industrial buildings, you know, sadly schools also, of course, like everything, like you could just roll around and you'd just be like, oh, let's go check out that spot. And we were out there so deep a couple of trips where, again, you could just have them, everyone could do what you wanted. You want to do big ass blocks on the roof, you want to do pieces, you want to do fucking, Hale wants to do 20 throw ups down the side, fucking Next is going to do a whole thing on this back. Like you just do whatever you wanted, you know. We had some fun trips out there where we were so deep painting spots together at night, it's like laughable, you know. We're like, dude, there's like fucking, there's a lot of us doing this, and like everyone's just doing their thing. It's fun.
Do you feel like you've had any really negative things come into your life through graffiti, or no? Like, do you think graffiti for you has been mostly like a positive thing for your life?
I do. I honestly do think it's been a mostly positive thing, and with negativity is usually from like negative people or people, you know, influence or shit going on with other individuals, and I try to navigate that. But yeah, I feel like it's been overwhelmingly positive. You know, again, mostly just I'm grateful for my community and, you know, people I'm around. Like I painted yesterday with Wayne and Demote in Queens here, like two of my favorite people, two people I've looked up to, for a long time, great friends of mine. And, it's amazing to land in a city like New York and spend a day with two people you really look up to and respect and are just awesome humans and fucking paint,
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like graffiti gets a bad rep a lot of the times for kind of ruining people's lives. People get, maybe they'll start using a lot. And then it's just kind of this like sex, drugs, and rock and roll type of lifestyle where every night's New Year's Eve type of thing.
Big time.
But a lot of the people I met, like you included, have kind of benefited from being a part of Graph, kind of a lot. And some of the people that I personally respect a lot, like Jest or KR or Rehab or Earsnot, like they've done a lot through their involvement with Graph, because it's kind of like shows you a lot of stuff, not even in terms of like life experience, just that, but like just learning about different scenes and cultures and being in different places and traveling and doing shit that, like, even if you did travel somewhere, like you wouldn't experience the same shit, you wouldn't learn about the same shit, and you wouldn't really get the same, like, the lens that you're viewing things from is different. And I feel like that's something that like is kind of overlooked, because there is like a lot of positive experiences that come from it that people forget about.
There is, but there's mad fucking pitfalls, like you just said. And the whole rock and roll lifestyle of like fast times, fast money, like everything that kind of goes along, like hustle culture, street culture, gang, like it all gets woven into this like graffiti world, I think reality is like graffiti is like the foundation or common denominator for a lot of people from these different worlds and backgrounds. And yeah, that sex, drugs, and rock and roll shit is heavy, and unfortunately it's real painful. We've lost a lot of people that are really important to us, and that's probably the harshest, saddest part of all this.
Yeah. Have you did you ever find yourself like living in this cycle because of the foundation of Graph that everything gets woven into, or have you kind of stayed clear and been like on your own shit?
No, I'd say times in my life I was like so far into the life that like graffiti was like the most positive thing I was doing, because everything else was fucking wild, from there. And then, changing away from that and trying to like grow into a future. And, I also got lucky in, the same way I have like older brothers in graffiti in my crew, I've been very fortunate to have some great mentors in other aspects of my life that showed me, ways to like move forward and do stuff where I could still be myself and still live my life, but make some steps that at least felt we're building towards something positive, versus just fucking wilding out,
And these mentors were outside of graffiti?
Some in graffiti and some outside of graffiti, and like business and, art world and all that kind of jazz.
When do you think you started kind of stepping away from full-time bombing, or even just the cycle of like being so into the life that you're getting almost carried away type of thing?
Well, I like accidentally stumbled into, I'd say I was like, I don't know, like late 20s. I accidentally stumbled into an opportunity to like go a different direction with career and work, very seriously, and started doing that, like more on the like business design, marketing type world, and, had people show me great inroads. And that was definitely like a transition of like, all right, I want to start building that a bit as well. Besides, be honest, I don't know if I thought about anything else up until that time, versus I just want to paint graffiti with my friends and survive and get by, but I don't think I had any like honest ambition of like a career or something in the future for a minute. But once that kind of like settled in, and like, yeah, like I say my mid-20s, late 20s, that was like a clearer picture, then that was something that changed for the better, I feel.
Are you still doing whatever it is that is, assuming you want to keep it like you private?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I do like some, design, marketing, all that kind of world. Work with a lot of my friends, been a part of a bunch of cool projects, been a part of some stupid projects, but it's all part of the world.
Do you make films?
I don't make films, but one of my best friends, my brother Dylan Maddox, who's an incredible photographer, videographer, he does films, and me and him have worked together and shared studios off and on since like 2005 or something like that. So we've done a lot of like fun projects together where I get to like help like script or, like creative director, whatever you want to say it. But he's like the brains and the talent behind it. I get to be like the backup dancer for it. But I really like making films and working on that kind of shit too.
Yeah, because I was on your website and I saw that there was like a link to some of that, or I forget where it was, maybe Vimeo or something, and I saw some like more like film like projects going down.
Like goofy cheeseburger shit.
Yeah. There was like Bone Thugs playing or something, and then there was like I think like Fate being interviewed, something like that. I didn't really like know what I was watching, but I was like, this is like a film like that they made. So I didn't know if you were into that.
Yeah, we're doing like little fun series and different shit, but we do a bunch of client work, video projects, and then we just do like fun stuff, on the side. That one you're talking about that was actually Dylan's father, really amazing human, pretending to be James Lipton as like the old Inside the Actor studio. And he interviewed Fate for like an art show he had in SF. So like, again, we just do like funny little off videos. But
so what do you do now in your, like, what's your day-to-day life like now?
My day-to-day life now?
Yeah.
I'm a part of a really big cannabis company in California. I've been a part of that team and helped build them for a while. I'm very grateful for that as well. I've got a lot of, really strong friends in that community. So I do a lot of that work, do a bunch of marketing and design shit too. But
how often are you making paintings?
I try to paint like at least every other day.
Okay, really?
Or at least like doodle or work on something.
Yeah.
I'd say fairly like at least every other day, every couple of days, I'm like painting something.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about having a show in New York or anything like that?
I had a show in New York like a long time ago, or not long, like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Me and Reyes had a show at Clubhouse.
Oh, dope.
And that was cool. That was really fucking fun. Those guys are awesome. It was a rad show. They had like a burger cart out in front. Everyone waiting in line got a free burger while they're waiting to get in the show. And,
oh shit.
It was fun. Yeah, those guys are rad.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's so. I feel like your life now that I'm like talking to you is like very multifaceted. There's like graffiti, there's the painting, and then there's like your outside work. Which one would you say is kind of consuming your life the most, or the one that you're the most focused on?
I don't know, not to sound corny, but trying to balance the both.
Yeah.
I'd say it comes and goes like the fight between, or not the fight, but just, whatever's taking precedent. But I was trying to balance out between the work shit and building that and making art. And
have you ever thought about moving out of the West Coast? You've lived there your whole life now.
I have, yeah. I don't know how I haven't lived here. I love New York so much. I've been coming here since I was 22 or something. I've been here a lot in my life. This fucking city is amazing. People are amazing. I don't know how I haven't lived here.
You haven't even stayed for like long stretches of time?
I think the longest I've stayed in one trip was like almost 2 weeks.
Oh shit, okay. Yeah, so not that long.
No, not most of the time. There's so many trips that are just like a few days or a week, but for work, I was coming out here a few times a year for a good amount of time. We're opening like stores out here. This is like a past life in like fashion design and apparel, and I was like helping build all these like retail stores out here in New York. So I was here all the time, which is amazing.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest differences are between here and West Coast in terms of like the way that the graph scene is, and even coming up writing graph? Like here, a lot of the people are influenced by, the train era, New York specific graffiti, and just East Coast in general is kind of centered around like a lot of people have like studied New York graph. But West Coast has its own set of legends, its own culture, and its own thing that it's brought up by itself, like organically. So how do you think it was coming up there versus someone who was coming up here, completely different like set of opportunities and influences?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think from like being a West Coast kid, New York always to me is like everyone's maximizing on like every space. There's like throw ups to the fucking 10th floor and little.
Especially right now.
Yeah, shit is destroyed right now. It's awesome driving around here. It's amazing. But it's like everyone's like taking every kind of, even the tiniest little cut or opportunity to get a spot, which is great. And you see a lot of that in like, I see like the same ingenuity in like LA writers, like LA writers are like going to take every spot on the building, and like the tiniest little ledge that's cut back or whatever, there's going to be a little piece on it. So yeah, I think I really always respected that and was like impressed with that with New York. It's just like all out bombing, savage, saturation, you know. Also think it's very interesting of just the flat out like New York versus West Coast shit, where like usually a lot of New York writers, they have like one throw up their whole career, and that's kind of all they do is that throw up. And maybe there's variations of it, but it's like that's their brand, that's their stamp, you know, down to like the little wiggle or weird line or whatever gives it that character. Like that's it, and it's about volume and replicating that the most. And I love and respect that mentality. I think that's great. And then West Coast is like you have people that do that, but also it's like shit is so flipped out and different, you know, like, and that's something that to me, I guess also goes back to inspiration from my crew is like, you know, you paint with someone like Zess or, you know, it's like there's so much style to like his approach or do it. He breaks all the fucking rules. There's not, you don't know what this dude's going to paint, you know, and it's like, that's always been some huge, you know, inspiration to me as well as that complete other school, you know, like an approach.
Yeah, and when I go to LA, I'm always impressed by the amount of blockbusters and rollers that are happening street side.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Like they're really like it's not
on
even
the streets,
like,
yeah.
on the streets. Like they were standing on the sidewalk for hours.
Yeah.
To do this in a super active neighborhood, and I feel like in New York, like you're saying, you see the throws. If you see a huge roller, stomper, blockbuster type of thing, it's probably from someone who's not from here.
Yeah.
Not to say that.
No, yeah, I've seen a lot of LA cats up right now with stuff around the city, and like you said, big block letter spots, and they're out here on their tourist vacation having fun.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Taking down whole fucking half block long block letters.
Yeah, and that style of graffiti is very effective.
Yeah.
Because you do one thing, and it's gonna get noticed more than a lot of like a bunch of other throws because it's just so impactful, and it's more like a not even piece in terms of like I did a piece, but it's more like a thing. You know what I mean? And you won't in New York, in my opinion, one of the things that is like kind of whatever is like there'll be a wall with 4,000 fill-ins on it. When you drive by that shit or walk by it, you might straight up not even know, like you might have seen 2 of the fills, and then the rest you don't even remember who was on the wall.
Yeah.
There's just too many. But with like in LA when I went there, like you just when you see the huge stompers, and it's just like you're gonna remember what it was because it was so big, so legible. It's like that MS Kings thing.
I was literally about to say that when you're like these like MS Kings and block letter stuff like that you had talked about, you saw earlier.
Yeah.
Like that was something that was always just to me was like, man, that's the fastest way to make your name the most visible, and like, you know, like the block letter campaigns has always been a huge thing, you know, in my crew and on the West Coast, and that's something that I was always like, block letters are the shit. Like you're standing on the street doing block letters, you're doing your name as big and legible as possible, you know, and you can do it well. That's the whole other art, you know, like people that really know how to do blocks well and do extensions and really like own that spot is something I've always loved.
When they do it with a crew, and it's just everyone,
that's
4 or 5 names, and it's like an entire building from left to right.
That shit gets me amped always and forever. Yeah, there's street block letter campaigns like are fucking a blast always.
Or I saw that like Saber and a bunch of those dudes did like the skywriting with the airplane.
Yeah.
When they write with like it looks like clouds and shit, but it's like says your name. It's just like next level types of graph, you know. Definitely very inspiring to witness. So where would you say that you're at in life now, and like what are your like upcoming plans or things you're working on?
I'd like to continue to make cheeseburger art and have fun. You know, just keep seeing where the burger characters develop into, and keep painting graffiti, keep having a good time and traveling.
If you want to give a shout out to anyone, if not, I gotta say, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. It's been super honor. Anytime I have anyone who's like, done the stuff that you've done and just been part of this history on the show, it's like, we're just super, I feel like it's a gift for you giving us a gift coming here. So like I said, thank you again.
I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. And shout outs to everyone that smiled and is my friend. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Peace.